So I do have another article, and this is about wind power, which is one of my very favorite subjects, and I'll show it on the camera real quick. This is also from the New York Times. It's from the, let's see, Wednesday, December 15th, New York Times. And the article is China Sets Rules and Wins Wind Power Game. And why did I find that so relevant and intriguing? Okay. In the 5 years since China has been working with Gamesa, which is the Spanish wind turbine manufacturer, in the 5 years since, the upstarts in China have grabbed more than 85% of the wind turbine market, aided by low interest loans and cheap land from the government, as well as preferential contracts from the state-owned power companies that are the main buyers of the equipment. Gamesa's market share in China is now only 3%. With their government-bestowed blessings, Chinese companies have flourished and now control almost half of the 45 million global market for wind turbines. The biggest of those players are now taking aim at foreign markets, particularly the United States, where General Electric has long been the leader. The story of Gamesa in China follows an industrial arc traced in other businesses like desktop computers and solar panels. Chinese companies acquire the latest Western technology by various means and then take advantage of government policies to become the world's dominant low-cost suppliers. It is a pattern that many economists say could be repeated in other fields, like high-speed trains and nuclear reactors, unless China changes. I don't think China will, especially if it's working. We can, think about that. There's more to this article. Chinese officials had begun to slip new provisions in their bidding requirements for some state-run wind farms, requiring more and more of the content of turbines to be equipment produced within China, not imported. And there is a little snippet here. Wind farms not meeting the requirement of equipment localization rate shall not be allowed to be built. And that's a directive known as Notice 1204. But the Chinese government bet correctly that Gamesa, the Spanish manufacturer, as well as GE and other multinationals, would not dare risk losing a piece of China's booming wind farm business by complaining to trade officials. However, Obama did address that, and I'll go on. In the United States, where there are no local content requirements, the wind turbine industry uses an average of 50% American-made parts. For its American operations, Gamesa relies somewhat more than that on American suppliers, but it still imports some parts from Spain, including crucial gearboxes. This is very important because we do have a burgeoning wind turbine industry in the United States. Iowa's number 2, Texas is number 1, and we do have efforts here within Iowa to create and manufacture our own gearboxes. Reading this story, we can see how important that effort is. China grew its wind power industry by requiring all gearboxes and other components or almost all components be manufactured within China. That's something to think about. Let's see. This is according to a gentleman named Calvet. He said that the American manufacturing sector had been so weakened in recent decades that for some components there were no American machinery companies readily available. It was not until the summer of 2009 when senior Obama administration officials started looking at barriers to American clean energy exports that the United States pressed China hard about their Notice 1204. The Chinese government revoked it 2 months later, but by the time our administration said something about it, the policy was no longer needed. Some Gamesa wind turbines exceeded 95% local content. Okay, as for the state-owned wind farms that are the main buyers of wind energy equipment, China has many policies to preserve their dominance while limiting market opportunities for foreign companies that might try to develop wind farms. China is playing hardball. turbine manufacturers, having become giants on the backs of companies like Gamesa, must now look beyond their captive national market for further growth. Sinovel, China's biggest wind turbine maker, has said it wants to become the world's largest by 2015. Wind farm developers in the West are worried that Western governments may be less enthusiastic about encouraging renewable energy requirements if these programs are perceived as creating jobs in China instead of at home. And so Sinovel, the Chinese company, is one of them, is now opening sales offices across the United States in preparation for a big export push next year. So that's the larger picture, the larger multinational, global picture of what the wind industry looks like in around the world, and how what China does and what Spain does will affect our status here in Iowa, in the United States, but then in Iowa too, since that's a large part of our burgeoning economy. It looks like local control of components, manufacturing component parts, is very crucial in order to maintain market share. It's something to consider, and it does, come down to policy. It always does, economic policy, things like that. Okay, so this is something from the Business Record. This is December 13th Business Record. You can see the cover, links in the chain. It's a cover story, and it's dealing with wind turbine manufacturing, and education in the Midwest. Well, actually Iowa. Okay.